covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Welcome to the Means Report. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. This is going to be an awesome show. How do I know that? Because we have some of the brightest young minds in Augusta, Georgia, and the surrounding area on the set of the Means Report today. And I'm just going to be quiet for most of the show and let them talk because we have some interesting topics to cover today. It's all about politics, folks. Timely, because here we are basically on the eve of the midterm elections. And we want to look at politics, how they are now versus perhaps how they used to be. Also the political climate. It's different than it used to be, is it not? Feels a little bit more heated at times, that's for sure, especially in recent weeks. And then fact versus fiction, especially when it comes to the messages that bombard us each day. How do we separate the two? How do we know what to believe and what to blow off? We're going to get into all of that today with our resident political scientist who does so much more than just study political science, Dr. Craig Albert of Augusta University. Dr. Albert, thank you for being with me again.
Of course, it's my honor. Thanks for having us.
Well, it is our honor because he breaks things down, folks, as you know, and makes them very easy to understand. And look who Dr. Albert brought with him today, several juniors and seniors from Augusta University. We have Deidre, we have Ladarius in the front row, we have Mary Kate, and we have Joshua in the back row. And we want to find out what they think when it comes to the political process, because young people, and Dr. Albert, as you know, and you're a young person too, but not many young people vote a lot of times. A lot of times it's the people 45, 50 and over that decide who our leaders are going to be. And so I'll start with you, Dr. Albert. Why is that? Why the overall lack of motivation for young folks to go to the polls?
Most of all, they have too much on their mind other than politics. They're trying to get their careers started, perhaps their families started. They're trying to get through school. So politics, though they pay attention to it, especially the millennials and the Generation Zs, they are paying more attention to it, but to make them go from paying attention to it to the voting booth when they have so many other concerns and just starting out in life is a dire task to make them go.
Let me just sort of go around the room here. Ladarius, starting with you. My guess is that you all have each had an opportunity to vote in one presidential election at this point in your lives.
Right.
Go back to when you were 18, and it doesn't have to be presidential politics, just politics in general. Go back to when you had that first opportunity. First of all, did you take it and vote as an 18-year-old?
Yes.
And second of all, when did you start realizing how you might vote?
So I did vote, and you know, at that particular period in time, I wasn't, you know, always clear on everything that was going on in our generation with social media and the fake news and everything that's going on. You hear so many stories and so many opinions about everything. Basically, you have to ground yourself and in your own time, figure out the candidates and their platforms and what they stand for, and you know, go out to the poll and try to make the best decision on what you think is right.
All right, great points by you, but Deidre, how do you process all of that? Ladarius made it sound easy. Study the candidates, learn their platforms, make your decision. But there are so many messages coming at you. How do you figure it all out?
I think the problem with that today is that social media is so prevalent in our time, and a lot of people tend to get their news from there, and they don't like to go and actually do the research or take the time out to do that. So they think it's just easier to, hey, I'm going to get my news from Instagram. This is how I feel about that candidate. And maybe I'm just not going to vote, or maybe I'm just going to vote for them because this is what was presented to me. But they don't really look at how it's going to affect them in the long run. So I think that's our main problem right now.
What about you, Mary Kate? Does it feel like things are coming at you too fast and furious, and it's tough to figure out what the real messages are?
Of course, I think it's difficult, but I think it's also it's expected to be difficult.
Sure, it is. What about you, Joshua? How do you cut through all the noise and and vote the way your heart wants you to vote?
I think after so much social media has become a part of our lives over the past few years, eventually I've just gotten to the point where I don't look at social media for my news. Really? I will go to other websites. I go to Fox News, go to CNN, kind of see what is each side saying about the different things. And as I look over these, each side has their own bias. But you got to try to cut through that. I know the one issue also too for people my age is the issue of they're not feeling like they're informed, and so they don't feel like they are qualified to vote.
Mary Kate, let me go back to you and ask about how much influence your family has on your political leanings, as much as you might have political leanings at your young age. But does growing up and listening to mom and dad and the grandparents, did that affect how you turned out so far?
Absolutely. I think that was probably the #1 factor for my political views.
You think it's good for a parent to express their political views, or to just say, hey, I'm not trying to influence you, but here's what I think? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I am not sure in my own home if I should hold back because I don't want to. I want my sons to make their own decisions. Should parents be forthright when it comes to their views?
I think they should be, but they should also be respectful. And I think as a young person, you should see that that is mom and dad's view, but that also you're an adult now and you have to come up with your own views.
You know, it's interesting, Dr. Albert, to hear these folks talk about the way that they're reached by the politicians and by the people who are sending out those messages. A lot of social media, a lot of things that are sent out via technology. Is that the way things are now? Is that the way that the people who are trying to send those messages know that they're going to get these folks?
For this generation, yes. Obviously, if you're above 50 or so, that social media isn't the biggest influencer. You're still traditionally a TV watcher, a news watcher, a newspaper reader, actually. But for Generation Z, the generation after this, and for generation, the millennials, social media is the way to go. This is one of the catalysts for President Trump. He knows this. He goes beyond the reach of the traditional news outlets and goes just to social media, and he reaches 50, 60, 70 million people every time he tweets or Instagram something.
What about the political climate that we're in right now? I want to ask all four of you about that. It has felt uncomfortable and controversial and heated, especially lately. How does that impact your political views or your motivation to go vote? Ladarius, I will begin with you. Does it make you want to get more involved in the political process or turn it off?
I think the political climate has, in a way, excited my generation to actually go out and vote. Somehow politics has become almost like pop culture. You know, it's a part of our everyday lives now. We see it on the news, we open our phone and we open our social media applications, and that's the first thing that we see. So I think the political climate, even though it may be seen as a negative thing in our current status as a country, is actually greatly benefiting my generation to go out and vote.
How about you, Deidre? Do y'all talk about things like this when the grown-ups are gone and y'all are just sitting around chatting? Is politics a hot topic?
Definitely, because with the older generation, they tell it to you like it is. They don't want to hear the fluffy that we want to talk about. But I think that young people are more in depth. They want to know, like as Dr. Albert said, how is this going to affect our livelihood, getting a job after college, starting your family, and I think that's what we're really focused on as young people right now. I'm a senior and I'll be moving out into the world pretty soon, and that's what I'm looking towards. How this is why I vote, because this is going to affect me, and it's going to affect how I live my life. So I really encourage everyone to take part of this action.
How about you, Mary Kate? I came out of those Kavanaugh hearings stressed out. I found that it upset me and that it affected my mood, and I wanted to turn away from politics and just block it all out. How does that controversy and that heated atmosphere affect you?
I think it's stressful, but I also think it motivates me to become involved and to really think about and to really formulate how I think and feel and why, and then put it out there.
How about you, Joshua? Same kind of feeling that it makes you want to jump into it and change things?
I think the biggest thing it puts in my heart is a desire for unity. We see so much polarization on either side. But I know growing up and being at Augusta University, we have people on both ends of the aisle, but these are my friends. They may have different political views than I do, but I want unity with my friends. I want to be able to work together to make our country better, to, heal these rifts that are there between, African Americans and Caucasians in America. Just all of these issues, there's these rifts and these wounds. And I really feel like our generation needs to step up and seek unity and healing together.
We're taking a look, folks, at what it takes to reach our younger voters, what it takes to motivate them to go to the polls, and conversely, what it takes to maybe prevent them from going to the polls. It's a special Means Report. Our panel from Augusta University will be right back in just a moment.